So normally my videos are about things I love or find really interesting. It shouldn't surprise anyone to hear, however, that I didn't like the Tom and Jerry film released just yesterday at the time of recording this. It's the worst film I've seen for quite some time. Not so bad it's good, not funny in how cringy it is, just really, really boring. Don't watch it, there's nothing to be gained. It did get me thinking about the original Tom and Jerry cartoons again, however. The only thing I found at all interesting about this film was trying to understand why the comedy doesn't work here the way it does in the original cartoons, because technically it's not that different. They use a lot of the same gags, the lump when hit on the heads, the elaborate trap designed by Tom, the mouse hole being moved. A lot, if not all of the gags in the film are taken from the original cartoons, but they just don't work here. Why is that? I am obviously a huge Tom and Jerry fan because I think every kid grows up a fan of Tom and Jerry. The fact it doesn't rely on language, the fact the comedy is mostly slapstick and doesn't tend to require context, means it's a completely timeless show. When I grew up, old Tom and Jerry episodes from the 40s or 50s were still being broadcast on TV because they were still funny. The 25-year-old me now still finds them funny, and they're cartoons watched all over the globe by kids everywhere from a wide variety of generations. Such is the incredible appeal of Tom and Jerry. Slapstick comedy is a very underrated form of comedy nowadays, I think because it's seen as a bit basic and stupid, but I 100% disagree to such an extent. I was planning to make a video about Laurel and Hardy someday, another timeless show. Slapstick requires not just great physical movement and timing, but also rhythm, narrative, and incredible creativity to the gags. This episode where Tom's design for a mousetrap comes to life is a creative idea, creating gags out of the cat's teeth being rubbed out, or using a fork to spin the cat into spaghetti. It's genuinely imaginative. And though I know that's quite an obvious first point to make, it's a big reason for why the film's comedy doesn't work. It isn't imaginative. Most of it is just Tom chasing and trying to hit Jerry with whatever objects, but missing and making a mess, which is fine to have some of. There's always some of that in the original cartoons, but it's just part of it that helps break up the rhythm. Fast chase bits in between slower moments of slapstick where we linger on an expression or watch somebody slowly get dragged away, or something more creative. So I guess that's 2 points there actually. The slapstick isn't so imaginative, nor is there such varied rhythm to it. The first sequence of slapstick in the film, for example, is with Tom playing the keyboard in the park, probably in tribute to the classic Cat Concerto episode where Tom plays the Hungarian Rhapsody. There, even just playing the piano is made funny through the overly solemn expression on Tom's face, or nice touches like his tuxedo springing forwards and having to push it back. It's imaginative. It's a great little touch that conveys emotion and a sense of narrative building. Tom is trying very hard to look professional and to impress, therefore setting the scene for Jerry to then try and break this professional appearance. In the film, however, it's just Tom is playing the piano. There's no humour injected into his movements. Similarly with Jerry, in the cartoon he's trying to sleep on the piano and getting disturbed and then getting annoyed, which is ridiculous, but it's imaginative. It's interesting. And in the cartoon, Jerry interferes with the music in a lot of ways, running under the keys, hitting the strings from behind, slamming the cover on Tom's fingers, trying to snip his fingers, so on. All with this great sense of battle between playing the song properly and Jerry disrupting its rhythm. It is just very clever. It's such a brilliantly simple narrative in which to play out a lot of inventive slapstick humour. But in the film, it's just Tom plays the piano and Jerry dances, seemingly to earn money, which doesn't affect Tom's performance, just distracts from it. All that actually happens in terms of slapstick is this. That's kind of all they do with the situation. There's one slight moment where Jerry punches Tom in the face, but then it's all just Tom chasing and trying to hit and missing. That's the entire sequence. It's lazy and uncreative and conveys nothing. Music, I think, is the second issue with the film's comedy as well. Even discounting the Cat Concerto episode, the music in the original cartoons always complemented the slapstick and supported its emotion and rhythm, so that chase moments you get these sort of sounds, or we get stabbing hit sounds. It all informs the comedy and adds to its impact, where the film opts to just play hip-hop in the background, which distracts from rather than adds to the humour. It reduces the impact of blows, reduces entire sequences down to just this one rhythm of the track, and also makes the sequences seem cool, or at least like they're trying to make them seem cool, like it's a fight from Samurai Champloo or something, rather than something that's meant to be ridiculous. Which is kind of my third point. The film tries to make the comedy much more epic. I think it's seen best in the moment of Tom's elaborate trap to catch Jerry. In the cartoon version of this, we get a nice wide shot to see all of the trap playing out, and the moment kind of conveys how ridiculous and convoluted the trap is, how stupid. That's the comedy. In the film, we get this close-up tracking shot of the trap, and epic music and moments of slow motion that don't convey comedy. They instead give off a feel that this is something really cool and a dramatic contraption that works very smoothly, not something that's stupid and funny. And I know that's a very isolated example, but I think the film has this problem a lot. It's one I empathise with, because making Tom and Jerry into a full-length film is not an easy thing to do. Film is so much grander than the short, contained cartoons of Tom and Jerry always were, so I think things are always going to end up a bit more epic and dramatic on some level. However, that's kind of the main premise of this film. It's Tom and Jerry, but they're living at large
in the big city.
Tom and Jerry, but in a more dramatic location. Taking that sort of premise to make film adaptations or sequels to things rarely ever works. Tom and Jerry was always good because it was always very small, contained situations, such as running around this singular house, or playing around this singular piano, or whatever contained setting for whichever episode, and that was it, you know? All the humour came out of all the inventive things they could do within the contained setting. You lose that when the setting becomes massive and the stakes become high. You know, like, nobody asked for Tom and Jerry to go big in New York. It's just the sort of thing that sounds convincing and easy to sell when you slap it on a trailer. As an actual premise, it's very shallow. And I just think everything's overly epic in this film in a way that detracts. Massive sequences where the entire hotel gets trashed, or a wedding leads to complete disaster, everything getting broken. The scale of it takes away everything that was fun about the cartoons. And similarly, a lot of the time they place the emphasis not on Tom and Jerry, but on the other characters watching Tom and Jerry. We're this crowd of staff members watching the chaos unfold, rather than our attention being up close and personal with the slapstick itself. We're more removed from it, and so, again, the impact is less. We get lots of shots of people we don't care about watching the fights happening, and cringing at the mess we don't care about. All we want to see is Tom getting hit in the face. Why is it placing us at a distance to that, you know? And the other key points I've alluded to, but somehow forgot to directly mention, so I'm adding now in the edit, are that the animation is too blended with the live action background to really see what's going on. Overall, the live action idea is a horrible one for Tom and Jerry. They don't linger long enough on the hits or on Tom's expressions. Their more general movements are too clean and not cartoonish enough, and they keep using dust clouds to avoid having to animate actual slapstick. And obviously the biggest problem with this film is that despite being called Tom and Jerry, it's not about Tom and Jerry. It's about Kayla, who's this random woman who's given zero character and we're given zero reason to feel invested in. The film is all about her story and boring scenes where she talks to people that are occasionally broken up by bits of Tom and Jerry hitting each other. I just I have to question, does this film know what its audience is? The target demographic is surely kids. What kid wants to watch Kayla walking around having conversations with people? You know, we get this annoying moment in the film where Terrence is introducing Kayla to the hotel, walking her around it, giving her a tour, and they're talking, and Tom and Jerry are just shown to be doing things in the background as this plays out.
The water pressure is never below 50 psi, and our threat count is never below 800. Button, please. Sorry, sir. The spa is top of the line.
And I just think that sums it up. They're like a background thing, not the main attraction. Because they're not given proper focus, their moments of humour don't land, and the rest of the film around those moments feels like a complete drag. And then, obviously, the general film itself is awful. Kayla's only character trait is that she's slightly awkward in a professional setting, or at least awkward when it suits the jokes to be, which is every character in this film, actually. They're all just saying awkward things that are meant to be kind of cringe funny, but aren't really. They're just mildly cringe.
Of course I know old Jojo Pennyfoot. Yeah, what a hoot.
Pennyfoot.
Terrence, who's her direct boss, is the antagonist who should naturally want Kayla to do well at her job because it would support the hotel. However, he seems keen to see her fail for no clear reason beyond...
You're one of those millennials that thinks they can get whatever they want, whenever they want, without working for it.
What? The conflict just doesn't make any sense. The film tries to bring in a level of emotional and thematic drama as well, for which, yeah, I won't blame it for that. You know, it's a 100-minute film. It would need some sense of theme, even if nobody cares about it. But what they go for is really bizarre. Kayla is someone who is made to resign from her job at the start of the film, so she goes into this hotel, discovers there's a job vacancy, tricks this very qualified woman who's applying for it into leaving whilst also stealing her resume and passing it off as her own. I assume that's fraud, to steal someone else's resume. It lands at the job. Obviously her employers eventually find out, and we then get this overly emotional scene where the point is kind of made that it's not all about having a good resume, it's about being the right person for the job. That's what matters. One, it's a very strange theme to centre a film around. I mean, there's no depth to it, and what an oddly specific thing anyway. Two, it's kind of not true. You know, America, and I guess New York in particular, is obsessed with painting this image as the land of opportunity where even an inexperienced, slightly awkward Kayla can land a job in one of the most prestigious hotels if she's the right person, because that's America. But it's a lie. Kayla, or the regular everyday people she's meant to represent, would have no chance of landing that job. None. Stealing someone else's resume would not be a thing you're just forgiven for. The real world is one where you can't land a job without experience in other jobs that you can't get because you need experience to land them in the first place. I'm not making a complaint about employment there. I'm just saying it's tricky, and how miraculously simple the film makes it just feels very shallow and very forced as the main thematic point behind the entire movie. There's also this theme to do with the celebrity couple getting married, with the message, don't waste money on really extravagant weddings when your fiancé actually wants something more minimal. Listen to what your fiancé wants.
I begged you to stop doing this stuff.
I'm sorry. That is the last surprise.
You just don't listen.
Listen to what?
I mean, I guess that's a theme, yeah. I don't really know why the bloke Ben is organising the wedding himself last minute anyway without his wife's consent, but never mind. I guess I'm nitpicking on the themes. Why am I talking about them? It's not a film meant to convey anything at all. It just needed good humour between Tom and Jerry, but it doesn't have that. It devotes time to all these other characters that add absolutely nothing. Also, there's loads of product placements like...
Don't spill any on your Jordan 5s.
These are actually retro reissues.
And pandering with Instagram and mention of millennials and stuff that I guess were supposed to make it more relatable to the new generation, when Ironically, the 1940s cartoons are much more relatable because they're timeless and don't need to pander. Look, I've been talking for too long now. This was meant to be a simple video. The general point is that it's a very, very bad film. Do not watch it. Don't even watch it to see how bad it is, because it's not interesting in that way. It's incredibly boring. Slapstick is an underrated art, I think. I might get round to making a video about Laurel and Hardy one day, but Tom and Jerry is the other obvious standout example of it. Let me know what your thoughts are. Like the video if you liked it, subscribe, support me on Patreon if you want, but just hopefully see you next time. And a special thank you goes to David Kling, Darren Brodder-Glatter, Kestrel, Wyden Bork the Streak, Tommy Steenrod, Samara Southey, Sharikov 2814 and Joshua C. Follier. Thank you.